I wanted to ask you a first question about the form of the movie. I felt like it mirrored so much what traumatic memory feels like, having memories that come back in a fragmented way and that are more sensory memories than really something that happens to you in a chronological way. So can you tell me how you worked around the editing of the story to make us feel that resurgence of trauma?
So the whole movie is just about iterations, because every time you recollect something, it changes a little bit. And then you put it into words, it changes even more, it becomes even more subjective. Nobody ever remembers anything the same. Audiences, especially where I'm from, which is fine, really want to know what's going on at all times, you know? You don't always know how you feel about why you feel so bad. And there's a sort of DMT trip type, not that I've ever done that, but the thing that happens before you die where your whole life flashes before your eyes or something. I wanted the movie as a whole to feel like that. And one that sort of started off quite chaotic because those memories were hard to touch. They were too hot to go near, because they were unprocessed and they weren't written about yet. They were the things that she was trying to grasp in the sort of darkness of her pain and trauma. It's funny, I wish that I had new words for that, but...
Well, maybe we need to invent some new words.
Yeah, no shit. But basically, in terms of editorial, the script was written really, really precisely, but there was no way that I could know that those images that we were going to capture were going to be the best ones or the ones that really got you and really tied to the experience that Imogen was having, because I think a real true regurgitation of exact things from the book. The book is a true, there are no real scenes in the book. It's just a series of very prosaic images, reflections, commentaries, kind of direct narration occasionally, because she does address the readers. She calls us out often. She calls herself out often. But the movie needed to start off submerged. And as it found itself, it became more calm, and her voiceover became more direct, and she became somebody that could really teach other people.
Yeah.
She became somebody who could actually articulate the things that she was having a hard time putting into an order that she could live with in the beginning. So the beginning was sort of the prologue. It doesn't necessarily exist. There's an introduction in the book, and then it kind of just, it goes off into a very splintered experience. But we needed to introduce the central metaphors. And we also needed to introduce a very particular sonic and visual language, so people felt comfortable being held by something, because we were going to throw you into a blender of a life. And then by the end, kind of plateau into contentment and into something more articulate. And so script, precise. I think movie reflects script. But actually, some of the images changed, because it was a really long process of finding she made the same face here than she made here. Mm-hmm. Oh, this sounded the same as it did over here. Oh, this image is the same. Oh, this house has water damage in the corner. Let's not look out the window. Let's look into the corner. There's water damage there. I mean, it was there were embedded metaphors all over our environment. And so the reason that I wanted to make this book a movie wasn't just to make the exact experience of reading the book. It was to sort of enlighten ourselves, remind ourselves, let people know that your memories are so malleable and they are what make you. Mm-hmm. And so make yourself. I mean, the most important line in the book for me is the things that happen to us are true, but writing is a whole other body. Yeah. It's yours. It's it's like clay. So, yeah.
I feel to talk about incest, you have to divert from the cinematic language that was invented by men, and your movie really made me think of pioneer filmmakers such as Barbara Hammer or Germaine Dulac or Maya Deren, in the way that, they were all bisexual or lesbian directors, and they all went towards experimental cinema to be able to critique the patriarchy. And I was wondering if you feel your movie, that's its lineage is to also use experimental cinema to be able to say something that nobody wants to see.
Yeah, because every single interview starts with, so it's very hard what happens to her. Tell us why you wanted to make a movie about incest and rape. It's like, do you know how hard it is to answer that question as somebody who, because I'm really lucky, I made a movie about someone else. But like, we are not encouraged to listen to ourselves. Nor does, I don't want to generalize and sound like a sort of like, I think it's really unproductive to be like, no one listens to us. We absolutely live in a world. I couldn't get this movie made for 8 years, and I had to leave the United States of America to do it. And I had a warm welcome in France, but I guarantee you, when I bring this movie home, people are going to be like, I could barely sell it. Like, the feedback that we had from like places that I really thought might like the movie, that love independent film, that actually are sort of like auteur forward or like support directors and artists, were like, we have no idea how to market this movie. We could barely get through it. All men.
Yeah.
Because it's gross. It's uncomfortable. They don't want to look at it. And like,
well, actually, you're the first one, because I actually studied like the representation of incest in American movies from like the 20s, you know, and unfortunately the book came out 2 years ago. I wish I had like hold on to that, but you're the first one who's giving us the point of view of the woman who is like surviving this. And there was Precious before you, but this is a very different narrative and it's a very different form. And it's crazy what you have achieved, and I know how hard it must have been, because this is the narrative nobody wants to look at.
I spent every single night in my kitchen making this movie dying, because I thought that I was ruining it because I wasn't given enough resources to do it. And it was just being attacked from all sides. And I was like, what's gonna happen is I stamped my feet and I'm not gonna finish my sentence and I'm never gonna get to do it again because I fucked it up and I like missed the opportunity. But it wasn't my fault. It was because I wasn't allowed to have. And it's funny, this is not an entitlement issue. It's like, I'm lucky to have gotten near this book. I'm so lucky to be able to make any movie anyone is. It's like such an enormous, like, kind of otherworldly ability, like a privilege. Kind of like an unthinkable privilege. But it was not about me. I was not crying because people weren't gonna like my movie. I was like, I'm dropping something that I think was the most important thing I ever picked up. Mm-hmm. And it kind of couldn't have failed though, because like it didn't have to be very concise. It didn't have to be very clear. I do think the movie ended up pretty good, like pretty cool. I fucking love it. But there are just certain images that just speak for themselves and stand alone. Like, of course, the form, like breaking of form is so important, because like self-narration is something that has shoved us out of the canon forever. Like, nobody wants anything autobiographical because it's like less than fine art. It's like less than high art.
Especially
like,
if it's women writing it.
Only if it's women writing it, actually, because confessional material by men is fucking lauded.
Everywhere.
And so if you start going, yeah, I mean, it's just my journal, they go, this is not art, this is not writing, you won't even, don't even come near the canon. It's a huge problem. I think, like, my favorite writings is like Kate Sembrino, like all of her weird, like, little book of uttering, it's like women who write in fractured pieces because we have been like sort of lacerated are acknowledging the treatment instead of sticking to a form that looks like what might allow us to like make a movie with any resources that makes that possible, or any version of being put into the history of work that matters. Mm-hmm. And so I was so expecting for this movie to get destroyed. And I never changed my approach to any of it, because I was like, it will underline the point of its necessity if everyone hates it. And some people like it, which is really cool. But I was expecting, probably because we're discussing the world that we're discussing now, I was expecting a much different reaction, because I'm bristly naturally, because that's what happens when you live here.
Yeah. And I was wondering if you had watched a movie called Multiple Orgasms by Barbara Hammer.
I haven't seen that one. Okay. I'll give you my list when we're done. I'll show you my list of movies, my reference points. Okay. I bet some of them align.
Because your the lesbian sex scene just made me think so much of it. It's basically it's an experimental movie where you see pieces of rocks like the ocean, and it's just like superimposed on a woman masturbating.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
And there's just a lot of fluid and a lot of texture, and I really thought it was like an homage that you were doing to Barbara Hammer.
That's really cool. And I saw recently something quite similar to that where it was like legs intertwined and then like 8mm kind of flashy, nostalgic feeling shots of rocks and water. I think it's a thing. Yeah, I think it's not just me and her and her and her and her and her and her.
No, it's definitely a thing. But I was wondering if you had actually rewatched those experimental movies, or if it was kind of like your own language, or if there was like kind of a lineage that you wanted to make appear.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure those things like seep in. I hadn't seen that piece. But approaching that scene was tough because like, I wanted to be overtly explicit because I didn't want to like be demure and sort of hide from it. But at the same time, I really wanted to see it from like a purely insider perspective. Upside down angles, you know, just the way that you see each other when you're actually together. And there's a whole deck for that scene outside of the larger sort of visualization decks for the movie. And it had its own name. We very lovingly refer to it as the girly fuck trip. And it was impossible to like get, it's so funny that everything was like such a fight. I shot all of the nature elements afterwards because we didn't have time to get them. And basically like nobody really thought it was important, and so it wasn't on the schedule. And I know that this is silly and we're getting into like the weeds and this is not how you do a proper interview, but like, I couldn't even get Olivia Neergaard-Holm is literally one of the most talented people that I've ever encountered in my life, and we made this thing together and we yelled at each other every day. And ultimately I was like, this sort of Dante's Inferno of women's bodies like overlapping is cool, but it does not go as far as insinuating as the movie does, which is like this organic growth element where it's like, no, this isn't like an alternative lifestyle that I chose. I grew here. And also to sort of slip into this wordless wet, there are very different ways that women relate to each other, that like the differences between a man and a woman is what is so fucking incredible about that union. Like and trust me, I know all about it. But there's a wordlessness and a complete sameness and a melding that happens that I have not seen in movies. I didn't want to know who I was looking at any given time because these women all became each other. And they were basically like organic material, like they could have grown in the ocean, like they're seaweed. And so it's like the coolest sequence ever. I love it so much. When I watch it, I literally am like, yeah, because it's not just a sex scene. I think it actually does, and also it led to what is the most lucky discovery in the movie, which was a total accident. Imogen was like exhausted. It was towards the end of the movie that we shot it, and we shot for like 3 hours because it's hard to get those. Yeah. It's hard to find those angles. We couldn't shot list that scene. My AD kept going, okay, so how many shots and what are they going to be? And I was like, we need to find them. And by the end of it, she was feeling very vulnerable and she was feeling spent and drained. And like the whole movie kind of had sort of just cracked open her sternum. Mm. And I looked over and I was like, oh, Imogen's like feeling something. I think that we should, because I wasn't planning on shooting anyone's face. I really wanted to keep face out of it. And all of a sudden she was like quaking, shaking. And I was like, are you okay? Do you need to like go? And she was like, no, it's weird. I just kind of feel crazy. And I was like, well, of course. That's what happens. Yeah. Everything started coming out and we just went really quietly, just like, boom. And she goes from this sort of absurd cackle, like she's laughing because she kind of is reeling at the release. And then all of a sudden someone hugs her and this person who she's been playing, who can't accept love, gets embraced. And she just loses it. And it's like the whole movie comes out of her in that moment. Wasn't in the script. I didn't plan for that. I didn't see that. That's because we did something for real and something happened. And it's, I think, like, really, really broadcasts the difference between the relationships and what she's getting from those sort of different relationships in her life. But that key moment is like,
Yeah, it's great.
There's a line in the movie that really struck a chord. It's when she says, I want wanting to come from somewhere else. And I feel like what is taboo in our society is not so much incest, it's about seeing women that have desire and that can acknowledge that desire is complicated. And I felt like that was so strong in your movie to be able to represent this character that has gone through incest but is still dealing with what she wants and discovering what she needs sexually. And I was wondering how you worked around that question of desire.
yeah, because if you think about it, like, there's no, and this is just like sort of the way of the world, and it is what it is. But it's crazy to not acknowledge that we do not design our desires; that our desires happen to us. I mean, it's a very Freudian like approach, but also at the same time, from a female perspective, we do not protrude. We are open vessels. Things happen to us. And in this world especially, I mean, it's the only one that I know, but you don't have to experience rape or incest to have desire gouged out of you in a way that had that you had no control over and that you don't like. I mean, like, just the fucking porn has just like ruined everyone, and every time you go, oh God, why do I want that? It's like, well, it's not your fault. And the shame doesn't have to hurt. You can like reframe that and enjoy it. I'm actually making something about that soon, and it's really cool. And I think you're gonna really like it.
I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
I think